آياتنا والله مستكبرا كأن لم يسمعها كأن في أذنيه وقرا فبشره بعذاب عليم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. وإذا تتلى عليه آياتنا, and when our verses are recited to him, wallah, he turns away. This wallah is different from wallahi, right? This is wallah, and that's wallahi. So that there's a difference between the two. So that's a wallah. Wallah means he turns away mustakbiran. He turns away in arrogance. Ka'allam yasma'aha, as if he did not even hear these words. Ka'anna fi uzunayhi waqra, as if there's heaviness in his ears. Fabashshirhu bi'azabin alim, give him the good news of painful punishment. Give him the news of painful punishment. This ayah, this ayah has a strong bond with the previous ayah. Allah still discussing that man who got this lady and who got all of these stories so that he can distract people from the path of Allah. And then Allah further discusses him. Then what else does he do? Distracts people away from the path of Allah. He makes them listen to this slave girl. He makes them listen to these stories so that he can distract people away from the Quran. Also, this is what he does. That when our verses are recited to this man, what does he do? He becomes very arrogant. But how dare you read these verses in front of me? So there's two ways of dealing with things which are new to you, right? You're listening to something new, you say, okay, fine, let me see what it means and let me see what he has to say. And there's this other thing, you say, oh, these stupid people, they don't know nothing. I know what the reality is. And this is exactly what his attitude was. And how dare they read these ayahs of the Quran? Do you think that I am going to become a slave of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I am much bigger than him. And I don't consider this Quran anything. And this is what his mind was, that I am too high level for all of these things. And sometimes even people, a lot of us, we will know people, that they think that, okay, the people who are following the religion, they might be some lowly creatures. Only lowly, low-level people follow, the religion. We high-level people, we don't need to follow the religion. So this was the attitude this man, Nazar bin Haris, had, and Allah was so upset with this. Allah spent 2 ayahs discussing this man in the Quran. Allah. So he took this path of arrogance. And the Quraysh of Makkah, they all were of the same view. That this humble person by the name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was very, they used to think that he is very truthful and he's a fine young man, but he comes from a humble background. He is, he's orphan and all of that. How can he be the prophet of Allah? And we cannot accept him as the prophet of Allah. So that means that we will all have to be under him. So this was the arrogance that made them not accept the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this arrogance is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is one of the major sins. That is why Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La yadkhulul jannah man kana fi qalbihi mithqala zarratin min kibr." That person is not going to enter Jannah even if he has this iota of arrogance inside of him. Iota of arrogance would mean that maybe at some point in your life, you did something that showed arrogance. This is not an iota of arrogance. What this man, Nazar bin Harish, did. This is a heart filled with arrogance. And the Prophet ﷺ said, even if you have an iota of arrogance, a small atom of arrogance inside of your heart, will not enter Jannah. That is why the leading reason, the biggest reason why people go to the mashayikh, to the scholars, the most important reason is so that if there is any arrogance, they should be told about it. And they go for the islah of this arrogance. That is why Sayyid Sulaiman Nadwi rahimahullah, one of the leading scholars of India, he asked this question to Hazrat Molana Ashraf Ali Thanvi rahimahullah. And he asked this question, what is the purpose of tasawwuf? People come and they give bayat and they become murids and then there's a shaykh. What is all of this? What is the purpose? And the shaykh replied, the only purpose of this is so that this arrogance that is inside of you is taken outside of you. So that your heart becomes pure from arrogance. This is the sole purpose of going in the company of the mashayikh. The Prophet ﷺ said that there are two sins about which the Prophet ﷺ said there are two sins, that in those two sins, if somebody commits those two sins, he will be punished in the hereafter, but he will also be punished in this world. And one is disobeying your parents. And the second one is arrogance. So this is a major, major, major sin. A Muslim is servant of Allah, and Abdullah is a humble person. Allah has defined who is in Abdullah, who's a servant of Allah, who's actually a mu'min. Allah Ta'ala says, وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ, the true servants of Allah, الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ حَوْنًا, when they walk on the earth, they walk with humility. So in this ayah, you learn two things. One is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes who Allah's servants are. These are the people of humility. But the second thing is that you learn from this ayah is that if you have humility inside of you, it is going to show up outside of you as well. That is why Allah says that when they walk with humility. Which means that people, when they see them, they can see this humility on them. So if you truly have humility inside of you, it is somehow going to show up outside of you as well. So this is the main purpose. It is one of the main purposes of our life. Somehow we get rid of this arrogance inside of us. And it is a very serious situation. This is the arrogance. It is the arrogance that doesn't lead people to accept Islam, to accept Iman. Why are all these people who don't believe in God, why do they not believe in God? The leading cause is arrogance. So there's a very reputed university in the US called Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., in this university, there is a professor who did some research on humility. And he wanted to do this research because he wanted to find out the benefits of humility and how you find out humility in people and how you can guide people towards humility, if there are any benefits. So he started his research and he wrote that after many, many months of spending time doing research on humility, I came to this one conclusion. It's very difficult to do research on humility because it is not something which is outside of you. It is something which is inside of you. So it's very difficult to do research on humility. Second thing, he said that humility is something which is hidden inside, but sometimes it is on a high pitch. Sometimes humility goes down. So again, it is very difficult to find out if somebody is humble or not. Because at one point, when you do research on him, he might be in a humble state, and otherwise he's in an arrogant state. So he said that, it was very difficult for me to do any research on humility. So then he included a lot of other, psychologists in his panel. So they were like, at least 20 people, 20 PhD doctors. Then they together did research on humility. And he said, we came to this conclusion about humility. And there are 5 things that we all agreed about. The first thing is that humility can be judged better under strain. When you are under strain, when you are pressed, when there's tensions going on, then you find out if somebody is humble or not. But there's no tension. We're sitting listening to this class. Nobody can find out who's humble and who's not, right? We're sitting here having fun in this class, listening to this lecture. All of us, nobody knows who's humble and who's not, right? But when you are under strain, right, then you are able to see if somebody has humility or if somebody does not have humility. That is why there was this man who came to Umar radiallahu anhu and he said, Sheikh, this certain man is a very nice person. He's an excellent person. Umar radiallahu anhu asked him, have you ever done any business with this man? He said, no. So then Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, he asked him, okay, have you ever done any, have you traveled with this man ever? He said, no. He said, if you haven't traveled, if you haven't done any business with him, you don't know what this man is. Why? Because you can only judge people under strain. When there's happiness and when there's everything is fine, then you cannot judge who is who. So the first thing that these professors, these group of scientists have agreed upon is that humility can only be judged under strain. So a lot of people, they say that before marriage, you cannot judge humility. After marriage, your humility is tested, right? It can be judged. Second thing about humility that all these scientists agreed about is that humility can be seen in others easily. Humility inside of you, you cannot see easily. Some people do see it, but it is easier to see in others. Again, the first thing also coincides with the Islamic teachings. This one also coincides with the Islamic teachings. The Prophet ﷺ has given us hukum. He's ordered us. It is incumbent upon you to go in the company of pious people and the scholars. Why? Because when you go in the company, they will show you what you are doing wrong and what you are doing right. So that means, again, this point that the scholars have said that humility can be seen in others easily than yourself, company of the Mashaykh, so that they can tell you what is wrong with this part. So Qari Tayyib rahimahullah went to the company of Hazrat rahimahullah, and he said to the Shaykh, Shaykh, I am the principal of the biggest madrasa in India, and I have a lot of earning, alhamdulillah. I have a lot of wealth. I have a strong reputation among people. Even the price that has given to me. Allah has given us deen as well. I have everything. And sometimes this feeling comes to me that maybe I am someone who's better than others. And this comes to me a lot. And because I have studied the deen, I know this feeling is wrong. This is what arrogance is, that you think that you're better than others. So Shaykh, please tell me, what should I recite? What should I read? What tasbih should I do so that my heart doesn't feel this way? And it should feel humble, that I'm less than others and I'm more sinful than others. So tell me, what do I need to read? And the Shaykh said, you don't need to read anything. You need to come here more. So that means when you go in the company of the Mashayikh, then you can do Islah. Then you can correct this wrong thing that is inside of you called arrogance. And this is what these guys are saying, these group of scientists, that humility can be seen better in others than yourself. And then the Shaykh told him one day, and you know, when you come here, the only thing I want you to do, nothing else, just one thing you need to do. When you come here, and there's other people here as well. The only thing you need to do is you need to turn the slippers that people wear upside down so that they can wear it properly when they come out. This is the only thing he told him. SubhanAllah. So again, these are 5 things that all these scientists agreed. And all of these 5 things are present in the Quran and Hadith. So they've agreed after so many years. And our Prophet ﷺ has told all of these things for 1400 years ago. The third thing about humility that all of these scientists agreed. What is the third thing? Gibran, can you read it? Yes, humility strengthens bonds. What does it mean? Humility strengthens bonds. A person who's humble, everybody's going to like him. In simple terms, this is what it is. If you're humble, everybody wants to be your friend. If you're arrogant, not a lot of people will want to be friends with you. It's difficult to be friends with a person who's arrogant. Allah tells his messenger, if we had not made you this soft that you are, then these people would have gone away from you. So it means people who are soft in their hearts, who are humble in their hearts, people are attracted towards them. So humility strengthens bonds. The person who's humble is loved by everyone. And a person who's arrogant, no matter how much wealth he has, no matter how much status he has, no matter how much, whatever else he has, people are not going to like him. People love humble people. So if you're humble, people love you even without any status and wealth. And if you're arrogant, people are not going to like you no matter how much wealth and status you have. SubhanAllah. And this humility is a sign of the Anbiya. It is a practice of the Rasul, the practice of the messengers of Allah. So once the Prophet ﷺ was sitting in his blessed masjid, and there was a Jew who was sitting close to the Messenger ﷺ, and a man, a Muslim, came from a far off community, and he was in a state of, anxiety and tension, and he said to the Messenger ﷺ, "O Prophet of Allah, I come from such and such area, and there's famine in our area, nothing to eat. We are all dying, and I'm here to ask for help." And it so happened the Messenger ﷺ had nothing. There was, nothing to eat. And there were days when the Prophet ﷺ would not eat anything, the Sahaba would not eat anything. It was such days of poverty. And the Messenger ﷺ wanted to help this man because he was such in dire straits. This Jewish person sitting there, he said, "Oh Messenger of Allah." Well, he didn't say, "Oh Messenger of Allah," because he was not a Muslim. He said, "Oh Muhammad, I can actually give you a loan. I have many, many bags of dates. I can give you as a loan and you can return them back to me on a certain day. We can fix that date. So the Messenger ﷺ fixed the date that, okay, on such and such a date, I will return these back to you. And the Prophet ﷺ took, maybe there were 15, 20 bags full of, dates. And Prophet ﷺ took it as loan and gave it to this man who came from this far-off village. And this man left. After many, many days, the date has not arrived when the Prophet ﷺ had to give these bags back to him. A few days before that day, this Jewish man, entered the masjid in rage, in anger, and he screamed out, "Oh Muhammad!" And the Prophet ﷺ was sitting in the masjid with his companions, and he looked at this man, and the companions also looked at him. Who is such a disrespectful man, calling out the Messenger ﷺ like this from the door of the masjid? And he said, "Why are you not returning my dates back to me?" And people were shocked that he's screaming from the door of the masjid. And he saw that everybody was angry at him, except for the Messenger ﷺ. So he came closer, and to make the Messenger ﷺ angry, he held his clothing, he held his cloth, and he started shaking the clothes that he was wearing. That, "Give me back my dates." This was shocking to all the companions. And the companions stood up, and Umar Radhiyallahu Anhu stood up. It looked as if he's going to kill this man. And he saw that on the blessed face of the Messenger ﷺ, there is no anger. And he seemed very patient. So to make the Messenger ﷺ angrier, he said, all of you sons of Abdul Muttalib, you are like this. You take loans and you don't repay these loans. Allahu Akbar. Now, not only he's saying bad things about the Messenger ﷺ, he's even saying bad things about the ancestors. At that point, Umar Radhiyallahu Anhu stood up and he said, "If you open your mouth even one more time, I am going to chop your head off." This is what he said. And he was ready to do it. At that point, the Messenger ﷺ, he said, "Umar, you should not say things like this. People who give loans, they have a right to ask for their money back." So now this man has asked for his dates back, and we have dates in such and such a place. You go with him and you give him all these dates back that he gave us, and you give him some more because you also threatened him. So Umar, because the Messenger ordered him, he had to go. He gave him all these dates. And now the scores were settled, right? But the Jewish man did not leave. He came back to the masjid. And he said to the Messenger when coming back to the masjid, "Oh, Prophet of Allah, I have decided that I am going to accept Islam. I'm going to become a Muslim." Everybody was shocked. This man who's being so disrespectful to the Messenger, now he's saying that I want to become a Muslim, I want to become a believer. So the Messenger asked him, "What made you think like this?" And he said, "O Messenger of Allah, in our books of Torah, the sign of the Messenger was that no matter how much you make him angry, the more angrier you try to make him, the more humble he will become in front of you. And the only person I see this sign in is you. So I accept that you are the Messenger of Allah." So humility strengthens bonds. Humility can actually change a Jewish person to become a Muslim man. So 5 things all of these scientists agree upon about humility. 1, humility can be best judged under strain. 2, humility can be seen in others easily. And the third thing is humility can strengthen bonds. And fourth is very surprising. Humility can lead to better health. What is the connection between humility and my health? Allahu Akbar. What does humility have to do with health? And these scholars, these scientists, they say, well, it has a lot to do with your health. Because those people who are not humble, who are arrogant, they pick fights with others. They become angry on others. They say bad things to others. And people who are humble, they don't get angry easily. And even if there is something that they are against something, even if they think that they have something, a difference with somebody else, they end their feud very easily. And a person who's angry is never ending feuds. He's always picking fights. One fight has not ended and he picks up another fight with another person. All his family members are also upset with him. So he's always in a state of fighting, in a state of stress. And if you are always in a state of stress, sometimes stress comes to each one of us. But if you're continuously in a state of stress, then all doctors also agree on this, that you will get one of these eight sicknesses, one of these 8 diseases. Either you get a heart disease, or you'll get a brain disease, or you'll get a nerve disease, or you will get stomach disease, or there will be disease in your intestines. And some scholars say that you can also get a disease in your bowel movement. And these researchers, they say that sometimes the stress can lead to sexual problems as well. So there are 7, 8 diseases. You will definitely get one of these things. If you're continuously in a state of stress, and an arrogant person is continuously in a state of stress. And a humble man, he actually ends up not in a state of stress because he ends all his fights very easily. He's ready to accept other people's, the bad things that other people do to him. He accepts it and he says, okay, let it go. This is what humility is, that you forgive others for the wrong things that they have done to you. And that is why they have better health. So the scholars agree the people who are humble have better health. They are loved by everyone. And there are some other things as well. And the fifth thing, the most important one of these, humility leads to growth in output. What does that mean? If you're humble, you have more wealth. Again, it's very difficult to understand. How can humility lead to more wealth? How does that happen? And these scholars, they prove it. And not only them, there's other scholars who've also written books on this. There's a book called From Good to Better. That's what the name of the book is. From good to great. That's what the name of the book. From good to great. This is what the name of the book is. And what is this book about? That there was this very big multinational company, and they were making average profits. And the CEO of the company was very arrogant. So then they changed the CEO, and they got a very humble man to run the company. And the profits skyrocketed. And then another company did the same thing. Another company did the same thing. 250 companies did this. They changed their CEOs from an arrogant man to a humble man. What happened? Allah. All of them had high profits. So then they said that, humility leads to growth in output. But this is also the view of Islam. If you're humble, Allah is going to give you more wealth. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَوْ بَسَّتَ اللَّهَ رِزْقَ لِعِبَادِهِ لَبَغَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ. If I increase the wealth of my servants, then they will be arrogant in this world. They will be rebellious in this world. لَبَغَوْا بَغَاوَةً. So if somebody is humble, then Allah does not need to stop his sustenance. Allah knows now he's humble, and Allah starts giving him more wealth. So this is the viewpoint of Islam as well. So all 5 things that they researched upon, and all of these scientists agree about humility, all of these 5 things are present in the Quran and the Hadith. It is very important to understand humility. And it is very important to gain this humility. Why? So many ayahs and so many hadiths. I will share with you one quote of Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, raziyallahu anhu, and inshallah then we'll end our class. Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu, he says that blessed is that entity. Blessed is that entity. He talks about Allah. That who has left no other path other than the path of humility to reach Him. So there's no other path to reach Allah except for this path of humility. So it is compulsory, it is obligatory on each one of us to attain some sort of humility in our lives. May Allah help us to become His servant, to become His humble servants. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I'll do the translation one more time and then we'll end this class, inshallah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa idha tutla alayhi ayatuna. And when our verses are recited to him, wallahu mustakbirun. He turns away in arrogance. Ka'allam yasma'aha. As if there was Ka'allam yasma'aha. As if he did not hear them. كَأَنَّ فِي أُذُنَيْهِ وَقْرًا. As if there is heaviness in his ears. فَبَشِّرْهُ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. So give him the good news of painful punishment. We will end here with a short dua and then we end our class. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala sayyidina al-anbiya wal-mursaleen. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ولسانا ذاكرا وقلبا خاشعا ورزقا واسعا وشفاء من كل داء. صلى الله تعالى على حبيبه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.